Hey, what's up guys? It's Greg, and today I'm back with another great artist tip. In this video, I'll be going over some things to think about when rendering white objects in your art. So if you've ever found that you have difficulty creating things such as clothing, snow, or clouds, stick around for the advice in this video. If you're creating work that's either monochromatic or black and white, you can go ahead and forgo the advice in this video. In order to create white objects in your art, we first need to understand how the human eye perceives color. This is the electromagnetic spectrum. It contains everything from radio waves to the UV light produced by the sun. But this little section here is the only part we as human beings can actually see, known as the visible light spectrum. Now when we think about the color white, we're actually perceiving all of these wavelengths simultaneously. A perfect demonstration of this is when shining a light through a prism and finding that it produces a rainbow. The most famous interpretation of this, of course, is Pink Floyd's 1973 album, The Dark Side of the Moon. Now when we think about color, we tend to rely heavily on memory and recall the names for things based on how we perceive objects during the day. We say, an apple is red, the sky is blue, or a leaf is green. But that's simply because of how we see these objects in white light. If we take the green leaf, for example, and perceive it at nighttime, even though we may still say the leaf is green, it actually appears to be a dark shade of gray or muted blue. So color has nothing really to do with the object itself, and instead has everything to do with the type of light reflecting off of it. With this principle in mind, let's take a look at an object we might call white, like this piece of paper for example. Here you can see a piece of paper in pure white light, but the same paper observed in the morning may appear to have a lighter blue color. Under an incandescent lamp, it appears to be yellower. Fluorescent light may add a greenish hue, and at dusk, it's a different color entirely. All of these white pieces of paper are totally different colors simply based on the lighting. Now let's apply this to your art. When coloring in or shading in white objects in your work, be mindful that the color white is actually all the visible colors in the spectrum and can vary greatly depending on the type of lighting. A perfect example of this is a recent drawing of Michael Myers I made. We all know the iconic mask is white, but even here in the film, you can clearly see the mask is a shade of blue. So when I drew this out, instead of shading in the values with black alone, I shaded them in with a variety of color in order to achieve a much more authentic and realistic look. I first started out by lightly tinting the image with orange, believe it or not. I then went in and added more value with a complementary color of green, which optically helps increase contrast. I then proceeded to add more tints with some reds, and again with a complementary color of blue to darken the values further. Not only did this add a grittier, dingier look to the mask, but also gave the illusion of actual light in the image. Each time a color was added, the mask actually appeared to become more white because it contained more colors of the visible spectrum. Once all the necessary tints were applied, I proceeded to feather in shades of black to blend things together and darken the values even more. Disclaimer: strictly shading in with black alone will then produce a grayscale image, but creating values with shades of color will give you a more lifelike and believable rendition of your white object. So when creating white objects in your art, really think about how white light is just all the colors in the spectrum combined. Think about what kind of light you want to portray. How much of it is shining? Is the light tinted? Think about the time of day and how bright the light is, or if there are any nearby objects reflecting other hues. White is not just a series of lights and darks, it's a combination of color, and once you start thinking of white objects in this sense, you'll begin to see a far more believable and realistic rendition in your work. Plus, it will leave room for you to add in actual white on top of your work in order to create even stronger and brighter highlights. I hope this aids you guys in your creative process and that you found the advice in this video to be helpful. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay weird.